WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. It's the start of Black History Month, but the number of black voters showing up to the polls is falling here in Charlotte. Now there's a new effort to help voters get ahead, laying out the issues, the candidates, and getting those voters to the ballot box. But first, a former North Carolina Republican Supreme Court justice filing a lawsuit targeting the state's new district maps. He's now going after his old party in a fight for what he calls fair elections. Joining us now is former North Carolina Supreme Court Justice Bob Orr. Judge, welcome back to Flashpoint. Nice to see you.
Thanks. It's great to be on today.
Yeah, it's not a secret that you were formerly a Republican. Now you're an independent. We've talked about this before. It's been in the papers. So what spurred you to go after these district lines in what some would say pretty late in the game?
Well, actually, what spurred this was a question asked by Justice Michael Morgan at the Harper 3 rehearing oral arguments. And he asked the lawyer for the defendants, are you saying that the citizens of North Carolina don't have a constitutional right to fair elections? And he really didn't get an answer, and the opinion certainly didn't address that question. And so I kept thinking, well, do the citizens, in fact, have a right, or do they not have a right to fair elections? And that's really what drove this. And of course, it was the cases in the context of the districts that were redrawn, but it really was less about going after the districts and more about trying to get clarification of whether the citizens of North Carolina have a constitutional right to fair elections.
Yeah, it comes down to sort of this idea of fair elections more than anything.
Yeah.
Your complaint alleges that the maps just aren't fair for fair elections. And my understanding, this is the first time a suit has challenged the idea that these maps could violate a citizen's right to a constitutional fair election. Is that your case?
Yeah, that's correct. And let me make a distinction between what's called enumerated rights. Those are rights specifically set out in the Constitution, and there are two election rights. One, the right to fair elections, the right to free elections and the right to frequent elections. The Constitution does not specifically address the right to fair elections, but there is a provision in our state constitution that says just because we've set out specific rights, it doesn't mean that the citizens don't retain other certain rights. And so our argument is that fair elections are the very foundation of our democracy. And, what good's a free election if it's not a fair election? And in that context, the districts that we challenged, the argument is that the legislature essentially stacked the deck by moving pockets of populations and precincts and aggregating them together to virtually guarantee or ensure that their candidate will win the congressional election or the state house or state senate election. And so that's the unfairness of it to the voters, because it essentially is a preordained outcome, or as close as you can get. And so it's an unenumerated right to fair elections that we contend citizens have, and that the violation is the stacking of the districts. And as I've said, I don't see any difference between stuffing a ballot box and stuffing a district with your voters to guarantee that your side wins.
There are Democrats listed as plaintiffs in this case. Is this a partisan lawsuit?
No. I mean, in the context of the maps were drawn this time by Republican supermajority in the legislature, and Democrats obviously are the ones that are complaining or concerned about the process. Historically, both parties have been guilty of stacking the deck, and long term, as I've tried to emphasize, a favorable ruling from the court would protect Republican in years to come when maybe the Democrats are in control of the redistricting process. So we think it's a good government suit, not a partisan suit.
because turnabout's fair play, and if Democrats have a chance, they'd probably do the same thing. That's what the case we've been making on this show now for quite some time. Let me ask you about being just realistic here, because the primaries are now just a few weeks away. You're targeting a handful of these districts. You just laid them out. With the election so close, the primary so close, honestly, what do you expect to see happen here?
Well, I think it will be difficult to get a final decision, hopefully a favorable decision that would impact the 2024 elections. But the maps that are drawn will stay in place absent a decision by the court telling the legislature to redraw them. Those maps will stay in place through the next census, which is 2030, and then we start all over with the process. So even though it might not impact the elections this cycle, we would hope that a favorable decision would impact the elections in 26, 28, 30. It's hard to think about that, isn't it? And frankly, if the court would say that citizens have a right to fair elections and you can't stack districts, I mean, that's a ruling arguably forever. It's not like a quick fix or anything. So we look at this as the opportunity to come as close as we're going to be able to fix this problem of legislatures, no matter who's in charge, stacking districts in their favor.
Yeah, the idea that this fair elections idea could strike a stake in the heart of gerrymandering once and for all. I mean, do you think that that's really realistic? I mean, beyond this year, what's it going to have to take, if it's not this lawsuit, then what else, to get more representative districts? And listen, this is not just North Carolina. In New York, they do it just the other way, but they do it for Democrats. In California, they do it just the other way, but for Democrats. So what's going to have to happen to get, some fair elections, some representative districts across the country, really?
Well, I think it's difficult for people in power, no matter which party, to give up power, and the power to manipulate these districts is very tempting, and it historically has been going on forever. So I think absent some huge change of heart by both political parties, I think it's going to take either the courts in all of these particular states, or arguably a reconsideration by the U.S. Supreme Court on the question. And I would note that the United States Bill of Rights contains an unenumerated language, and so it's not inconceivable that the U.S. Supreme Court could at some point in time say that the citizens of the United States have a right to fair elections, and stacking the districts, whether you're stacking them for Democrats or stacking them for Republicans or some other party, is simply in violation of the Constitution. And if that happens, then we will have a fair reapportionment and redistricting process.
I say it every time we talk about this. It's not sexy. It's not salacious. But honestly, redistricting, I mean, Judge, it's one of the most important issues of our time, and I worry not enough people pay attention to it, because it is, admittedly, so complicated. All right, Justice Bob Orr. Justice, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it as always.
It's always a treat to be with you.
Still to come on Flashpoint, a new project working to get black voters out to the polls here in Charlotte. The push as early voting begins in less than 2 weeks.